The Home Office to set aside £100 million of extra funding to support the pilot of the one-in, one-out agreement between the UK and France.
But with 25,000 making the crossing this year alone, that's the earliest in the year ever on record we've got to that mark. You can imagine that critics are saying that 50 migrants facing deportation per week will make very little difference. Well, we're joined now by Home Office Minister Dame Angela Eagle. Good to speak to you this morning, Dame Eagle. I think a lot of people...
Call me Angela, for goodness sakes.
Sorry?
Call me Angela.
All right, Ange. I'll go in with that. Look, I think a lot of people had sympathy with you when you came into power and said the whole system's a mess. I think people on all sides agreed. The trouble is that here we are a year and a bit in, and it feels like the situation's getting worse. More crossings, more people at risk, more people coming in, and the gangs not being smashed. Have you any evidence at all that what you've put into place so far is even working just a little bit?
Well, yes, but there's no quick, easy fix to this.
Give us the evidence first before you get into the fact it's got to be slow, because that, I think, people would like to hear.
Well, we inherited a terrible situation with huge backlogs in the system, which we're getting down. We are doing much more work with our colleagues.
What backlogs are coming down?
Well, when we came into government, the previous government had a 70% fall in asylum decision-making, so there was just hundreds of thousands of people backed up in the system not having decisions at all.
What's the percentage now?
We've got it down to 78,000 for first initial decisions. We've had a 116% increase in asylum decision-making, which is getting the system moving again. There's now a backlog developing in the appeal system because we've got the system moving again, which is why the Home Secretary's been talking about a major reform of the appeal system later this year. Remember, we still don't have our border security bill on the statute book. It's stuck in the House of Lords at the moment, and both the Conservatives and Reform are opposing that. That would give us more counter-terrorism style powers to disrupt the gangs and prevent crossings than we have at the moment, including the power to download phones of particular people, use that intelligence. That's why the £100 million that we've announced today is about creating 300 extra National Crime Agency jobs so that they can do more intelligence gathering and analysis and start to crack down on the gangs. We've had 350 disruptions of gangs, including 56 high-impact disruptions of the organised immigration gangs. We've done this deal with the French in order to have the first returns ever. It's a pilot, but it's the first returns to a European country of anyone since Brexit. We've persuaded the French that they've got to change their stance in the maritime area so they can wade in and interdict boats when they're in the shallow areas. We are doing a lot, but there's no one quick, easy fix to this. These gangs are allowed to develop and industrialise their processes along our borders, and it takes this kind of detailed diplomatic and police work to ensure that we can begin to crack down on it, and we will, and we are.
Can I ask you about both the pilot and then appeals? On this one-in, one-out pilot, which you are signing with the French, Andrew Pearce was with us earlier. He said, compared to the thousands of people coming over every week, sending back just 50 people to France every week is not going to make any difference. It's not really going to be a deterrent. Is that really all you're going to be sending back, 50 people a week?
Well, firstly, it's a pilot, and we're going to start with low figures so that we can get the system working. We then have certainly the appetite.
Works, you might increase the numbers.
Yes, we have the appetite to ramp it up. But we're starting because we've had no such agreements for years, and the processes are, by their definition, complex. We're starting small so that we can ramp it up later if we can prove the concept.
But you can see why people are a bit frustrated that you've been in government for over a year and now you're having a pilot. And people think, we don't want a pilot, we actually want you to do it.
Yeah, but our predecessors just shouted at the French for not doing enough. And there was not really very much cooperation. We've had to re-establish our diplomatic sort of relationship across with the whole of Europe, which is what the EU reset is about. We've had to do that. We've had to start effectively from scratch. And these things take time. But over time, these policies and the new money we've announced will make a difference. People just have to be patient. There's no quick, easy magic wand to wave over what is a complex, difficult problem that's been allowed to establish itself along our borders.
I understand that. You'll understand why our view is patience is running very, very thin at the moment. Can I ask you about the appeals question? There are currently over 50,000 people who have had an asylum claim rejected who have now appealed. The appeal time is over a year. These are people who are staying in hotels paid for by the taxpayer while they are doing these appeals. Now, I know you want to speed up the appeals, but explain to us how you can actually do that. Is it possible for our Parliament to speed up these appeals, or isn't it fundamentally that our membership of the European Convention on Human Rights just means it's very hard to deal with that appeal backlog?
Well, I think, firstly, the appeal backlog is because of a judicial bottleneck. There's a capacity issue, which is why the Home Secretary is looking at a complete reform of the appeal system. And in our border security bill, currently stuck in the House of Lords, we put a 24-week limit on the appeals so that we can at least speed those up. But we've got to deal with the bottleneck of judicial capacity and think of how we can reform the appeal system itself to make that much faster. It's not fair, I don't think, on anyone who's failed an asylum system to then have to wait years for an appeal. It's important for us to be able to get the system itself from start to finish much, much faster than the one that we inherited, which was virtually paralysed, so that we can send back those people who fail to their countries of origin. And we've sent 35,000 people back to the countries of origin who have no right to be here since we came into government. We are getting those systems working much more effectively than they were when we first came into government. And it's important.
The Daily Mail says on page 2 of the paper, I think it's in the Times as well, that you are looking to introduce ID cards to fight illegal migration. It calls them Blair-style ID cards. I know that costs billions of pounds. Does the Home Office have billions of pounds to spend on an ID card system? And would it help you tackle illegal migration?
Well, the first thing to say is that we are extending what are known as e-visas to all migrants. This is legal migrants who come in with visas.
But that's not ID cards.
That will act as an effective ID card for migrants, and certainly it can be used to check by employers, for example, that the person they're thinking of employing has the right to work.
But Tony Blair wants everybody to have an ID card, every citizen in the UK, and that will help us tackle it. Is that worth the money?
Well, look, Ed, I don't know how much money it would cost to do that these days. I suspect it'd be a lot cheaper than it was when you and I were in government, and we actually legislated for ID cards, but the whole system was scrapped by the Tory coalition government when it came into power in 2010. If they hadn't have done that, we'd have them by now. But at the moment, the government policy, even if it's being looked at, is not in favour of ID cards. But at the Home Office, we are dealing with e-visas, which gives us the same capacity for those who foreign workers who've come to the country.
Dame Angela Eagle, thank you very much indeed. Good to talk to you. Dame Eagle or Angela?
Angela, please.
Or Ange, although I think that kind of...
Or Ange, why not?
I think that makes you Deputy Prime Minister and Deputy of the Labour Party.
Oh, yeah, we mustn't mix up our Angelas.
We mustn't muddle.
Let's not do it.
Good to speak to you this morning.
In another world.
Thank you very much indeed.